All right, let's shift gears a little bit. You mentioned it briefly. Joe McHale and the community. Community is in for a big shakeup. A lot of changes are there. A lot of folks are, I think kind of need this, right?
The situation with Community, it's a bizarre situation. You have the original creator of the show, and Dan Harmon. He was there for 3 years, produced great stuff, some of the best, most innovative stuff I think we've almost ever seen in comedy. But then he left at the end of season 3, mostly because NBC forced him out. There was the mess with Chevy Chase. There was all the some behind-the-scenes drama that went on there, and he was replaced in season 4 by some new showrunners. They did their best. It was still an okay show, but it was just not Community. And I think what people really expected of this show was one of the best things on TV, and when that wasn't really delivered, they freaked out. And, Community fans are passionate. They're some of the best fans on TV that just they'll follow the show anywhere. And so season 5, he's back. Joel McHale was instrumental in that. Based on what I'm hearing, out of the first few episodes, there's at least 1 or 2 of them that I think you're really going to sit there and say, wow, this is the show that I remembered. This is the show that I loved. It's going to be funny again. It's going to be silly again. And I think one thing to remember is even if the premiere starts off a little slow, it's going to get better and better from there. I mean, if you look Community seasons past, even the ones with Harmon there, the first episode was never really the best, but then once you get to episode 2, episode 3, episode 4, it just builds and builds and builds. And then by the time you're around the midway point of the season, it's just completely crazy and so funny. And if you love Breaking Bad, Jonathan Banks, who was Mike on the show, he's going to be around almost the whole season as a professor. And while he was completely terrifying on the AMC show, I hear he's really, really funny here.
Fantastic to hear. And as you know, Matt Carter is a huge fan of Community, so take that to the bank. Let's go to a different show. Let's go to Downton Abbey, which is kicked off its 4th season, and it's doing so exceedingly well with its amazing cast. Give folks a little bit of insight on what to expect.
All right, so Downton Abbey's 4th season is going to be different in a lot of ways than season 3. I think season 3 was really all this building and building to this big shock at the end of the season, which was Matthew's dead. And then there's the questions, what's going to happen to Mary? How is everyone within the Abbey going to handle just a big part of the show being gone? And then there's the movement into the 20s. It's a completely different time period. It's a period where people are starting to be more open and more free, where women are going to the city more and their roles are changing, and it's a struggle to adapt. And I think that's really what a lot of Downton Abbey is about, is a struggle for these upper class people trying to change and adapt to the times, and also build and maintain some of the relationships that are there. And I got to be really coy when I say some of this, because I don't want to say anything that's actually happening, give something away. But I think really the first episode is going to be really interesting for people, because that's all about Mary really figuring out what she wants to do with the rest of her life. She doesn't have Matthew. She doesn't have that support system, but she has to figure out a way that she can go on and continue to live. And that's going to be a struggle for her. And as you move along the season, there's going to be some big storylines for some of the servants. There's some really big Bates and Anna stuff coming that's really going to get people talking. And then even as you near the end, Tom's going to have some more to do. There's some new characters. You have the first ever black character on the show, played by Gary Carr, and he's fantastic. I think this is going to be a really interesting season. I mean, I don't know whether or not I can say it's better than season 3, but I think there's a lot going on. There's a lot of new characters. There's a lot of new situations. And if you're a fan of just the costumes and the feeling of the times and just this overall kind of spirit, I guess that you would say it's Downton Abbey, where you can really throw yourself into this world, I think you're really, really going to like it.
What do you think is the biggest appeal of Abbey?
There's a lot of things I think are appealing to Downton Abbey. I think some of it is the characters, some of it is the performances, which are great. But I think there's also, I call it in some ways idealized history. And what I mean by that is it's throwing you into a little bit of a world that was, almost a century ago. But it's really a world that's painted in such a way that you would want to be there and you would want to be a part of it. I've heard so many people just talk to me over the past couple of years about how they would want to be, in the Abbey or working with the servants or being with Robert or Cora or spending time with these people or just experiencing what that life was like. And I think it really, even though these people are struggling and there's a lot of really dark and really depressing storylines at times, I mean, the show is painted into such a way that it makes you fascinated about history, and it makes you fascinated about the people, and it almost creates this sort of mindset where you feel like these people are your friends or they're your family, and you want to be there with them, and you want to experience things with them. And I think that also really goes a lot into why people are so loyal to the show and why they are so up in arms whenever something crazy happens. Like when Matthew died, I mean, people were angry, they were furious, and that's really a big reason why. It's because they're so invested in these individual people.
It's definitely got a really massive, massive following. Let me go to a show that you're definitely an avid follower of. How I Met Your Mother. We're finally going to wrap up. We're headed into a climactic series finale. What do we know about how it's shaping up?
All right, yes. Finally, we're near the end of How I Met Your Mother. It's taken a long time, 9 years, but we're getting there. The show is ending at the end of March. There's still a lot of stuff left to come. I mean, as of right now, you have the mother, and she's met Marshall, she's met Lily, and she's also met Barney, and she's going to meet Robin before she meets Ted. That's going to be coming up near the end of the series, but that's going to be a really important moment when you watch the show a lot. You know that there's a really complicated relationship still between Ted and Robin giving the stamp of approval to the mother is going to be a really big thing. But that's all going to be happening. There's, of course, the moment when Ted meets the mother. There's the wedding between Barney and Robin. I mean, just from the standpoint of pure fun, I think what a lot of people are really looking forward to is actually the episode airing on Monday night called Slapsgiving 3. And if you're a longtime fan of the show, you know that there has been a slap bet that's been going on with Marshall and Barney for a long, long time on the show. And that's finally going to be resolved on Monday. It's going to be zany, it's going to be weird, it's going to be hilarious, and if you're just now coming onto the show, it's probably not going to make a lot of sense to you, but I think at this point during the ninth season, I think the writers are really just focused on tying up all the loose ends that people who have watched the show for a long time are curious about. I mean, later this month is also a really big landmark episode for the show, the 200th one, and that is called How Your Mother Met Me, and that's going to be going back and taking a look at what was happening with the mother while we were seeing all this stuff happening with Ted over the years. And that's going to be almost like a 9-year history lesson in like 30 minutes. And it's going to be pretty crazy to watch, but I hear Kristen Milioti, who's the mother on the show, that she's really, really great in it.
Fantastic.